Greetings, it's Dr. Annette Publishing Pusher, the all-in-body place of encouragement, cultural empowerment. Weekly, she'll engage conversations with entrepreneurs and creators. And these insightful interviews are designed to help us build our businesses, respective brands, ourselves, and to hopefully propel us to that next level of greatness. Big boss. So with no time to waste time, it's officially go time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dr. Annette Publishing Pusher. I am your host. As always, I'm excited to come into this platform and to be able to bring some wonderful people to you. I want to remind everyone who's been following me, I am your go-to for your publishing needs. They call me the pusher because I'm always trying to get people to see their greater potential and to pull those thoughts from their minds to make it plain so that they can get their thoughts into written form. That's how we create these wonderful books that we have out here. I'm excited today that I will be interviewing Dr. Eric Holmes. How you doing, Dr. Eric?
Dr. Annette, I am absolutely wonderful. Love the energy. I'm great, doing wonderful. Just glad to be alive and in the land of the living.
Listen, I always say every day, thank the Lord for being up on top of the dirt and not under.
That's it.
Yes. So listen, I want you to introduce yourself. I could read your bio, but I want you to introduce yourself to everybody so they can get to know a little bit about you. And we'll move into your book, but I'm also going to ask you some questions as we go along.
Again, thank you, Dr. Annette, for allowing me to come on. It's always humble and honoring to anyone to invite you into their platform, their space, their vision that God has given them. My name is Dr. Eric Holmes. Everybody calls me Dr. E. Originally from Harrisburg, PA, born and raised, went to school, went to college, come from a family of 8. We grew up knowing what love and value a family is. I have 5 brothers, 2 sisters. And so growing up with a family of 8, always went to school, went to work, went to church, so all those value was instilled that we're missing today. And so this is my 30th year. 30 years ago, I moved to Baltimore, Maryland, joined the greatest church on this side of heaven, the Bethel Temple Church of Christ, located at 3910 West Rogers Avenue under the late pastor, Apostle Robert Evans, now Bishop Richard Pender, which I serve on many capacities in ministry, been in healthcare for Johns Hopkins the last 27 years. And so, of course, a international best-selling award-winning author. I co-authored 5 books. I wrote 4, a certified life, mental health and behavioral health coach, an ordained elder, and I hold a doctorate in Christian education. And so I'm just an humble servant who said yes.
Love it. It's good to be humble and it's good to be a servant. I love both of those. So let me ask you, Dr. E, as you want to be called. I love it. What inspired you to want to become a writer, an author? And I'd say the two separately because many people write and never become authors.
And there is a difference. And I love telling this because it's so amazing how God's plans will trump our plans. And when you follow the plans of God, it's one Saturday morning, I came downstairs, one of my prayer times, 5 a.m. Saturday morning, and I was praying, just asking God to bless me, to be a blessing to my bishop and first lady and to ministry and kingdom. And after praying, God said, put it in the book. I walked in to my kitchen after praying and opened the door to the deck, and the tree in my yard had changed colors. He said, your season just changed. Your season just changed. Put it in the book, The Power of the Seed. And I turned around and I took out a piece of paper and I began to draw the tree, which I still have to this day. I still have it 8 years later. And so I drew it. He gave me the title, The Power of the Seed. So I immediately just sent it over to a buddy of mine who's a graphic designer. I said, this is what I want. He probably said, what in the world is my big brother, Dr. E, sending me at 5:45 on a Saturday morning? But you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. So guess what? I sent it over and it all went from there. And I wasn't asking to be an author. I was asking God, even not even a writer, is that to be a blessing. And he said, put it in a book. And from there, it all these books just happened, and every prophetic word about books and all of this. So that's how it all started. And I love it because I tell people this all the time. You could have missed that Kairos moment. You could have missed the moment that God has by procrastinating, not obeying, or just not go and say, oh, I'll do it. I immediately, like right then and there, started doing just that, drawing the tree, put the power of the seed. I put that, which was my first book. And so I could have missed the opportunity of how far that the power of the seed has excelled.
I like that. So let me ask you a question. Since you have worked on many book projects, is there anything that has challenged you in your writing efforts?
The one thing with challenges, and I always look at things from two different perspectives. Just like I look at the rain from a two different perspective. You know, it comes to water, refreshing, releasing, but it comes to water, what I have seeded in the ground. It rained today, but then it snowed. So now, as Isaiah 55:10 says, as the rain and snow coming down from heaven, he giveth bread to the eater and seed to the sower. So I look at it from two different perspectives. And so even with challenges, I've learned to look at them even from a victorious standpoint. Some of the challenges is, and I'll use it from writing with other people. They have to be timely. They have to follow. And when you are organized, or when you have submitted yours and you're waiting on other people, then it holds up the project. But when I did mine individual, only really challenges was, I think when I wrote my first one, right before I released my first book, my mom transitioned. Just talked to her on a Sunday, Tuesday, get a call from my oldest sister, but I looked at it from another perspective because I could hear my mother saying quitting is not an option. And so the power of the seed was still released because I could hear those words in what was embedded. Though a challenge, my heart broken, just one of the most challenging things you will face, to lose a mother. But yet with that challenge, it turned into a victorious situation because I could hear her. So I heard those words to say quitting is not an option. And so with that, I proceeded to release the power of the seed.
No, I love that. I love that. Now I want to talk about this book called Embracing My Now While Waiting on My Next. Come on with it. I know you got something good to share. Come on.
Oh, listen, now when I say this is so profound and so prophetic, which I didn't, but just like with Abraham, he will show you as you go. But you've got to learn to embrace where you are while waiting on the next, while knowing that the next is now. But if you never embrace where you are, you'll never get to where you're going. And so when God gave me this, it was at each pivotal moment in each season of your life, you got to see what God is doing. And so when he gave me that, I had taken my little sister out to say, listen, we're going to celebrate your birthday. And we were sitting at the table and I was talking about the embracing, and she chimed in, and literally I wrote it on a napkin, that whole theme of it, oh man, he gave it right there. So I said, oh my God, this is it. We just, and Red Robin, and so the thing about it is, so he's began to give it to me, not knowing how profound and how prolific it was. Because when I sent it to my aunt, who's a graphic designer, a photographer, she owns Life Thoughts Publishing, Life Thoughts Photography, Life Thoughts Graphics, and she did the last 2 books. I said, Auntie, this is what I need. And so I gave her the vision. So here's the key. You've got to be able, when you have people in your circle and on your team, one that will, if you give them the vision, they will house the vision and they will support the vision, but yet they will push the vision. But in all, if I gave them the vision, they wouldn't steal the vision. And so I said, this is what I want. So we set up Zoom and meetings, and that's why I love it. It's just not something overnight. So we set up everything. And then she said, wait a minute, I need to do something different with this book than I did with the last. See, they're divine assignment. They ain't just book, biblically based, backed up with the word God inspired, divine assignments. And so she said, I needed to do something different. She said, I need to do the photo shoot to this one. I said, wow. I said, okay, Flo, I know the oil on your life. I know you operate in the Holy Ghost, but I know you operate in what God has given you, and which is so key when you're tapped into the anointing, when you're tapped into the oil, when you're tapped into the Holy Ghost. And so what happened was she said, well, listen, this is where I'm going to take you here. And, after we sent all the graphics and all of that stuff. And she said, even the blurb she did on the back, she said, I needed to do something different. And so when we get to where we needed to do the photo shoot, I said, Lord, wow, let the sun set. He said, I'm going to take you. He took me to Psalm 23. I'm going to lead you beside the still waters. Now, literally, the waters stood still and the sun, I got to show this, y'all. You can see where the sun in between the mountains, it began to set. And so we're on a bridge. She said, I need you to just start walking. So walking to where I was, but she said, now turn around and come back the other way. And so coming back the other way, it was showing me where I was embracing where I was in the middle of the bridge. Yet when I went the other way, it was where I was going. And so now I was embracing where I am, but knowing that my next, waiting on my next, but my next is now, but knowing I had something to look forward, knowing I had something I was going and headed in the direction that I was going. And so the sun was setting, the water stood still, and he took me to Psalm 23. I'm just going to lead you beside the still water. So in the middle of the bridge, he'll give you favor because the car stopped and let me finish my photo shoot. Yes. And so I'm here. And so I took a picture with standing in the middle of the bridge while I'm looking to where I'm going. And so because I've embraced where I was, knowing I had something greater and where I was going, I embraced where I was. And though the journey and the obstacles, guess what? The bridge was just the transportation to get me to where I was going.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Just understanding the now and maintaining focus, knowing that, your now just becomes, your next just becomes your now anyway. We're done with next, but your next becomes your now. But you talk about in some of your content about having that perspective of looking through the lens and having that the eyes of faith. How does that interject into this embracing my now while waiting on my next?
One of my other books I did, which was called My Next Season is Due Season. And I said, you have to be, when I studied photography years ago in an arts magnet school, everything's developed in the dark. Good things are developed in the dark, but yet, and still the process, the preparation. But when you look at things through the eyes of faith, when you look at it through the eyes of grace, you see things from another perspective, because you will see victory even when it looks like defeat. You will see the end result when you're just even in the beginning stages, just like the farmer. I tell them all the time, he sees from the beginning, yet he sees the end, but he's got to deal with the middle of the process, which is critical, crucial, and key, even for the seed, because the middle process got to be watered, nurtured, and harvest. So I've learned, like the photographer, you look through the lens of the camera and you adjust the lens to get the right angle. Like you told me to turn my camera, but now that I got the right angle, because in life, sometimes the angle gets off. Sometimes in life, it's going to be unbalanced. So I look in the camera, I look in the lens, and I adjust the lens and get the right angle. So I look at it from another perspective. And so I've learned to look at things from a whole faith perspective, because the just shall live by faith, and we walk by faith. And so it is a faith walk in our journey in life. It really is a faith walk.
It is truly a faith walk. Thank you so much for that. Now, when also a little bit about your journey and this embracing my now while waiting on my next. How do we, you use the words excitingly anticipate. How do we excitingly anticipate where we're going?
Well, one, you got to know God and the relationship, but if you know the word, it will allow you to know. One, listen, the best is yet to come. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning, as he said in the word, but yet and still knowing that there's something greater coming. The latter shall be greater. The best is yet to come, but you've got to believe it. What, as my Bishop Pender would say, what are you expecting? But what are you anticipating? Because it's two different terminologies. I'm expecting, but yet I'm in anticipation. So I get in the posture and position to receive what he has. But then here's the thing. I've got to work while I wait. I've got to be in position in the right posture to receive what he has. But I've got to believe it, first of all, by faith of what he said. And then you got a part to play in it. Vashawn Mitchell has a song that says, the story to it. Listen, you've got a part to play in it, because one, if I don't believe it, whether I'm waiting on healing, a miracle, the manifestation of a prophetic word, first of all, I got to have faith enough to believe it. And if you don't believe it, nothing's going to happen. But then you got to work while you wait on a manifestation of that which was been spoken. So even for the finishing of my book, I had to work while I'm waiting on a finished product. Even with your faith, healing, miracles, signs, what are you believing? What are you anticipating? So now I connect them together. I'm in expectation of what he said. I am anticipating what is to come. And so even with the embracing of the now while waiting on my next, I break it down. What is the embracing? What is the now? But what is the next? So how do I handle the middle of the process? I got to work the vision and build the brand. I got to work while I wait. Then I got to work. I got to build, I got to work, I got to move, I got to have faith enough to believe. And so now I see it from another perspective.
Another perspective. Now, one of the words you use is reflecting. How do we reflect? Give us a way or two that we can reflect as we are waiting on the now, but embracing. Waiting on the next, but embracing the now. How can we reflect?
The reflection is you always, like I said, learn to remember all the ways that he's made. You've got to even be like, what you've got to remember. All you need is a thought and a memory. Where was I yesterday? Where was I 3 months ago? Where was I a year ago? Now, where I am right now is not where I was. So I'm reflecting. I'm remembering. I'm looking at where I was. I remember sharing this message about 5 years ago when I was in between the wilderness and the promise. But when I look at 5 years later, I look at the doors he's opened, the ways he's made, how he's kept me, sustained me, but yet and still he says to me, don't compromise your promise and settle for less. It's worth the wait. And so in the middle of the waiting, in the process of the waiting, when I look 5 years, it's not where I am now. And so I'm reflecting on, yes, the situation, the circumstance, the wilderness, or what he had to take me through, the process, the preparation, yet and still, when I look at the other side of it, when I look at the reflection of it now, he gives me a memory and a thought. I tell people, just look in the rearview mirror. Just don't stay there. It's just to see how far I come, but stay focused and forward, looking where you're going and headed in the direction. And so it will cause you to be reminded. It will cause you to reflect on, I'm not where I was. When I look on, even I don't care, my credit score go up 2 points, it's going in the right direction, because then I can remember when it went in the other direction. So all you need is a thought and a memory in that reflection. What am I reflecting on?
So what am I reflecting on? That's good. As you engage people, and I know with your profession, you're always coaching and counseling people. How has your book, even if you didn't say it was the book, but how is your book a fit for what you are doing? And would you refer someone that you're working with to your book?
Absolutely. Why? One, it's always ministry, because God said to me, I had to endure it to be able to write it, to release it. So this comes from experience. It comes from enduring and going through the process. Yet if can cause people to and get them to understand what I tell them in here, it's not how you start, but how you finish. It's not how fast you run, but that you endure. When I wrote How to Handle Patience and Endurance, it's 8 tracks on the book. right? It's not how it is that you just got to stay in the lane and you got to operate the lane you've been in. You got to operate the lane you've been given. Just like the turtle and the rabbit, I used that illustration in the book. It wasn't how fast he was going. He just kept on going. He didn't get distracted that the rabbit was faster, that the rabbit started out ahead. And we get so distracted. Oh, this person is ahead of me. This person is fast. Because when you run the race, the word says, listen, the race is not given to the swift nor the battle too strong. Listen, the whole key to it is endurance. And so I've learned to endure. I've learned to stay focused, but I've learned to cause people to stop and to remember or to be reminded. This is not going to be like this always. Or as the song says, or the older saints would say, trouble don't last always, but you got to believe it. You got to understand it. So I've got to bring light to the situation and to be reminded to them that this is not going to be like this always, but they're shifting their mind and their perspective. You got to shift the mind. You got to shift their perspective, but then you got to cause them, they got to understand, they got to believe it.
Yeah, that's good. That's rich. So when we you talk about everybody goes through something.
Yes.
Everybody goes through something. So we all have some obstacles that arise in our life. All of us. And we're going to use this bridge as is shown on the cover of your book. We're going to use this bridge to understand that we have obstacles, but we can still move forward. That's what the bridge represents, moving forward. Am I correct?
Yes.
When on the bridge, every time I've been on a bridge, I've not stayed on the bridge. I have continued to move forward on that bridge until I was able to do what? Get off the bridge towards my destination. Speak to that for us.
I love it because if you read a little bit of the back, which, and I have to read it like this. Our journey to our next will encounter many obstacles along the way. It is important that you understand that each obstacle is just a bridge for you to get over, transporting you to your final destination. And I get them, I'm in the middle of it, but I've got to get to the end. If I'm in a tunnel, I know there's one way in and one way out. But if I get stuck in the middle, I'll never get to the end of the tunnel. Just like on the bridge, I'm not going to stay stuck on the bridge. Even if traffic is held up, even if there is a delay, at some point, I'll get to the other side. I'll get to the end of the bridge. But I got to shift it knowing that I'm not going to stay here. Even in my situation, my circle, at some point it's going to change. But it takes me, it takes faith, it takes my perspective, it takes me even to put in the work and to believe that it's going to change. And so while I'm on this bridge, I love it because I was headed in another direction. I know I got to get to where I'm going. So can't stay stuck here in the middle of this bridge because I got somewhere to go. I got purpose to get to. I got destiny to get to. And so I can't stay stuck here. Even if I felt I was at a crossroad, at some point, Lord, give me direction. What, do I go left? Do I go right? Because even at a crossroad, at some point, you got to make a decision whether you're going left, right, going forward. And so I'm reminding them, you don't have to stay stuck in the middle of the process, because how you handle the middle of the process is going to determine the outcome. And so I always say to them, let me just give you the illustration like Paul and them. When the Euroclydon storm showed up, when they were shipwrecked, they had two options, swim or sink. You got options and you got choices. As I say to my manager, they got options and choices. As we were coming in, we thought long-term, longevity, career. They don't do that this day. They'll leave in a minute. However, here's the thing. So when your Euroclydon, so they had two options, swim or sink. And even I say this to them, you got to even pick up the boards and broken pieces in your life and make it work for you. And that's what they did. Some swam, some on boards, and some on broken pieces. But here's the thing. They all made it to land. And so you got to take that mindset. I got to get to land. I got to get to the other side. I'm in the middle of this bridge. I'm embracing where I am while waiting on my next, but I've got to be in movement to get to my next.
This is good. This is real good. Listen, everybody, get a copy of Embracing My Now While Waiting on My Next by Dr. Eric Holmes. So make sure y'all get a copy of that book. I like to tell people, don't just get one, get a couple of them, and then get with your friends and family member, and y'all discuss it. It is nothing like a good book discussion, y'all, to bring some perspective forward. Dr. E, you are doing a lot when it comes to writing your own books, helping other people to become authors, a part of collaborations and things. What, if any, have you seen in dealing with your clients that they had to help them overcome any limiting beliefs they had?
One, I tell everybody has a story. And if you want to put it in a book, write it. All the logistics, I was just helping one of my big brothers, and I'm going to email you this offline with a whole situation with their publishing in a book. And, they didn't put it on Amazon, and then now they did, because I told them, send it to the lawyer. You got a contract. I've been doing this for 10 years. Did it. And guess what? Now they're starting to get some results. I try to get them to, one, you've got to believe it. If you don't, but I could believe all I want for Dr. Annette, but if she doesn't believe it, nothing's going to happen. I could believe for a miracle. I could believe for healing, a turnaround, but then she has to have a part to play in it. And so what I try to get them to understand, your story, somebody needs your story. Somebody needs our testimony. That's why when we used to have those testimony services that were real testimony services, we overcome because it helped somebody else. You might have went through this, but I've already been on the other side of it. And so now I can help you. If I'm writing a book, I can share. So don't you fall into this. Don't just, I tell them, don't just, you got to do your research. You got to do your homework. You got to have a mentor, got to have a coach. You got to have somebody with the best interest that has your best interest at heart, because we look at things just like the enemy. He will show you things, but never tell you that the end of it is death and destruction, because it looks good. And that ain't no cliche. Everything that glitters is not gold. No, those are truths, because they will make it paint the picture. I just had somebody, they just really just got ripped off, period. That's the whole bottom line to it. And I said, you had me at your disposal. Ask the questions. Was Elder Shanika Lawrence said, listen, ask the Savior to help you. We've got to ask, because the help is available. But if you don't, because I could have stopped you from going to this pitfall. And though even in life, sometimes we will experience things, but if you can help me, why do I need to go through it? If you can help me. Now, some things we're going to experience, but if you can help me, why would I need to go down that same road if I already know what it done for you?
Yeah, that's good. I have a room that I run at 11 o'clock on days, and we were just talking about publishing in that space as well. And you make a really, really good point. Sometimes people know who you are, but they don't come to you for whatever reason. I don't know, but they don't. And then they find themselves in a pickle, as they say. And then all of a sudden, but thank God that because of who we are, we're still going to serve people. So that's a blessing in itself. And so in what you're doing and you're assisting others, how do you encourage people to stay focused on the mission?
One, I share experience. I share testimony. As I said earlier, being in between the wilderness and the promise 5 years ago, in between the positions, in between the campuses, but God will give you a word. And that word, I preached it, I ministered it, but I always speak it to people. Don't compromise your promise and settle for less. It is worth the wait. And it is worth waiting, because so many times I tell them, don't just jump, don't just move, because when we do, we miss the opportunity, or we miss the door of opportunity that He has for us. Then we got to try to go back, and we try, Lord, help me to get over this, this. No. Understand this is that everybody has a story. We're all going to go through things in life. We're on a journey called life. We're trying to get to the end of it, to hear Him say, well done. And that is the greatest, the ultimate thing we want to hear. However, while we're traveling through this barren land, as they would say, as we're going through this journey called life, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, but how you handle it, how you deal with it, how you embrace it, is going to determine the outcome. But you've got to I tell people, put your faith to work, put your faith to action, but then you got to work while you wait. And then how you wait, your posture, your position. And so I try to encourage them, look at it. These are experiences. They're not bad situations. We're going through it. but it's testimonies. We want miracles, but who wants to be the miracle? We want to be millionaires or all of this, but who wants to go through the financial process of it? And so you've got to look at things from as I say, from a whole nother perspective, but you got to see it like the woman with the issue of blood. She knew that if I could just get to the hem, despite all of this, she had to block out all that distraction. She had to stay focused. Listen, she was at a critical state. And you've got to get to that where I just got to get to it. I had to get to the hem of the garment. But because of faith and because she believed it, didn't matter what the outside was saying. She had to stay focused. I said, stay focused on the vision. Stay focused on the purpose of what he's called you to do. Because when you start getting off, I tell people, even if there's a detour, and I just had to take one the other day, it was a detour. But if you follow the road, if you follow the signs, it'll lead you back to the right road. It'll lead you right back to where you needed to be, even in the detours.
Amen. And there will be detours in life, people. There will be challenges, situations will arise, but we can still stay on the correct path. So let me ask you a question, Dr. E. Share with us any upcoming projects or initiatives that you are particularly excited about in this season.
I'm excited because next week I'll be sharing where I went to school at is now in a university. I'll be sharing for a Black History program, speaking to college students at Harrisburg University. So I'm super excited about that because they get to see their own, where I know them, urban city community, which I can relate and share with them, and they can see, not how I started, but where I am, yet where I'm going. And then I'll be sharing at another Black History program for Liberty International Ministries in Wardor. So I'm excited. And then I'm actually going to be on a platform with Dr. Marcia and Sean Fair and all of them in April. So super excited about that. And then actually in May, I'll be doing my Power of the Pen, the third year for the Authors Expo. And it'll be from this year, from two different perspectives. Let's keep writing. Let's keep talking from a male's perspective and from a woman's perspective. This last year, it was from a Black male's perspective. And so when God gave me that, and then I'll be going to June in Vegas to the Confidence Conference in Vegas, be one of the speakers there. So I'm super excited what God is doing. So, and then I do a radio show on Fridays on Power 4.4 Radio, The Power of Influence with Dr. E, which will be happening this Friday. So I'm super excited.
Wow. Listen, everybody. Dr. E got some great things going on. Maybe you're going to be in one of the areas where he's going to be showing up. Then go find out how you can get in there to learn something, okay? And listen into his radio station as well on Fridays. Dr. E, I want you to let everybody know how they can reach you and also how they can access your resources.
I can be reached. I am on all of social media. Facebook, Eric Holmes, Twitter, Dr. Eric Holmes, LinkedIn, Dr. Eric Holmes, Instagram, Dr. E. Holmes, and also the Power of the Seed. So I can be reached on any of those platforms. And you can always email me, ELYNNK1306@gmail.com. And you can definitely also just message me, or if you happen to be in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Dauphin County, PA, you can go to the library and my books are in the library. So my bio or Google me, it's in there. And so, but definitely, if you definitely want to get copies, please reach out to me. I love signing them because I don't just write my name. I specifically sign what God gives me. And I love it because it's more personable to me when I do that. And I love mailing them out. So you can reach out to me, message me, email me, call me, text me, all of the above. And definitely, I would love to connect with you.
All right. So you all heard how you can get in touch with Dr. E, Dr. Eric Holmes. And if you couldn't hear anything quite clear, just reach out to me. I'll make sure that I get his information to you. Now, Dr. Eric, before we close, I love to hear empowering thoughts from our authors. So I want you to leave an empowering thought with everyone that's listening and viewing.
All right. Well, Dr. Annette, wonderful, wonderful as always. I'm honored and humbled, and it's a privilege. But what I always say to people, and I leave this with the team, my group, my team, and shout out to them, Annette Morton, Life Thoughts Publishing, Monet Horton, Mo's Enterprise, and Tierra Parker, written with intentions. You need a good team to push your vision. But I tell people this: live on purpose, with purpose, for purpose, and let your passion push you to purpose to connect with destiny. And whatever you do, don't let the visions and dreams die. Don't allow others to cause them to die, but don't even allow yourself to cause them to die. Go back and take another look, because as God said to me, the promise is still good, and there's no expiration date to my word or my promise. But you got to put faith to work, faith to action, and then you got to work while you wait.
Wow. Wow. Y'all remember, this is Dr. Eric Holmes. His book, this book, because he has more than one book, y'all. Check him out. Is Embracing My Now While Waiting on My Next. Dr. E has some powerful stuff going on. Show up, like I said, to one of these places where he is going to be speaking so that you can get some of that meat off the table, okay? Thank you again, Dr. Eric Holmes, for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Annette. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Listen, everybody, I like to say this most often as I close. Remember, you are blessed to be a blessing. And you are supposed to be the visible manifestation of his invisible presence. I will catch you next time. Y'all have a fantabulous rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to Dr. Annette's Chat Podcast, brought to you by Annette Publishing. Be sure to stay tuned in for future conversations and engagements. Check out the website, jotnatepublishing.org, and subscribe to this show on your preferred podcast app. Shout out to 95 for the production. Be blessed and be a blessing. Peace.